You're listening to the Teach Better Talk podcast featuring expert educators eager to share progressive tactics to reach more students. Teach Better Talk is created by teachers and fueled by passion. Let's get started.
Hey everyone, welcome to episode 146 of Teach Better Talk. I'm Ray Hewart, and as always, I'm with my very challenging friend, Jeff Gargas.
Very challenging, huh? What's going on there?
Well, come on. That was submitted by Carrie LaRue, and she, I think, meant it because you have been submitting all these videos. They've been plastered all over social media, challenging people every single day to do something. I've been watching them. I feel like I'm kind of stalking you on social media, but they've been really good. And I think she's enjoying them too by calling you challenging.
Yeah, she's reached out. She's commented. She's taken on. She's been like, I've got this challenge accepted, all kinds of stuff on several of them. So that's awesome. I appreciate that, Carrie. I hope you're listening and continuing on. So
I just want you to know,
going after it.
Jeff, after a very long night of podcast recording, I think you're very challenging as well, but in a very different way.
I agree with that.
Sorry, buddy.
It's very challenging to podcast with me. I can totally understand that.
It's true. It's late. But then again, we had an amazing host. And so, like, mine
amazing host? Yeah,
oh, no,
you?
Not host. I meant our guest.
No, you are, in fact, an amazing host. You're right.
I meant that our guest was really good this episode.
Yeah.
You're fired.
And I'm the challenger one. So speaking of a challenge, can I twist this into, can we talk about the Valentine's Day challenge that's going on right now? It's
Absolutely.
Our, Teach Better challenge of the month for Valentine's Day, right?
I love that we do hashtag Teach Better monthly challenges. Aren't those always so fun?
Yeah, that's just a fun time to take a couple days to just get kind of focused in on your PLN and sharing and kind of all collaborate. It's almost like a little couple day long mini mastery chat. Or Twitter chat, kind of thing going on. I like it. It's a lot of fun to just be able to jump in and follow everyone having the same conversation for a little bit.
Yeah,
so,
cool. And when our team designs these, they try and fall at some point in the month where we're able to be very reflective. And so actually a shout out to Becky on the team. She really wanted to take on this Valentine's Day hashtag Teach Better challenge. And so she did a lot of great work to put this all together. So we love her. She's amazing.
Yes. Thank you, Becky.
Thank you, Becky.
So are you able to give us, so we're already into this, we're a couple days in, but someone listening may not have seen any of these. So can you give us a rundown of this is a 4-day challenge, right? Start on the 11th, goes through tomorrow the 14th. Can you give us the what to expect kind of thing? Or what have I missed if I haven't been paying attention so I can go make sure I get back into the questions? Where are we at?
Absolutely. So guys, you can see these questions all over social media, depending on what platform you use. I promise you it's there. Just find the hashtag Teach Better and you'll be able to see the questions. They're posted every single day in the morning and they always have some sort of theme. So the theme for this week, of course, is Valentine's Day. And we've asked 3 questions so far. And our 4th question will be coming out the day of Valentine's Day. The one this morning that officially is out for you to go respond to right away is, what are some ways you are showing some love to yourself through self-care? So we're hoping that everybody can hop over on their favorite social media platform and using the hashtag Teach Better can kind of share their self-care routine. I think it's really important. That kind of goes back to a few podcasts ago when we had Dan Tricario, we were talking about pamper triggers, right? What are you doing in your day-to-day life that, make sure that you are refilling your bucket?
Yeah, I like it. So super cool. So yeah, make sure you jump over whatever social media you like to get on and search hashtag Teach Better and get into that. Even if you're just getting now and you missed the first 2 days, you can go back and answer those. People are still answering them.
Yeah, you have
That's
to.
One of the favorite parts about it. So get in there. Share with it. Make sure you connect with Ray and I and the team, which is at Teach Better Team. So,
Jeff, really quick, I think, and I saw that everyone responded to this, and I just want to make sure our listeners know I deserved a shout out for yesterday's question, and I don't think that you tagged me in a shout out.
I probably didn't.
See, the question was that, it's a statement before the question. Love comes in many forms, including showing appreciation for others. Who are some people in your life that deserve special recognition? I deserve a tweet, Jeff Gargas.
Yeah, you're right. I should probably get you a tweet.
Okay, go work on that after this podcast.
I'll figure that out. Someone else that deserves a special tweet is our guest today.
Absolutely.
So this one, I was excited about this one. So Scott Nunes, he's an instructor, teacher. He's a podcaster. He's a lover of ed tech. We found out today he's got a former life too that I'm gonna let you talk about. That was super cool and I dove into. But I've been connected with Scott for a while. This is a super passionate educator who loves bringing his passions and new ideas and tech into his classroom to create really cool moments for his students and really focus on future ready skills and best practices to really like just go after that full maximum potential for all of his students. And this guy is super passionate. Like I said, I have so many conversations with him and I learn something new every time I talk to him. So I'm so excited that we were able to get him on the podcast, get him sharing a story. And I don't think you're going to be disappointed. I think you're going to really enjoy this one. He is the co-host of the TNT EdTech podcast. So if you know that, you know that's a fantastic show. So he knows what he's doing, and he brought it for this one. Ray, anything that you want people to pull out of this other than the fact that Scott's awesome?
Yeah, I love this episode. I am a huge fan of Scott and everything he continues to support teachers with. So let's get started.
All right, let's get to episode 146 with Scott Nunes.
Hey everyone, it's Ray. We are about to get right back to the episode, but I wanted to make sure you are a part of our Facebook group. The Teach Better team has a private Facebook group that has grown so much over the past few months, and we continue to do live sessions, answer questions, and have teachers share their lesson plan ideas so we can all collaborate together. Head over to Facebook and search Teach Better Team to request to join, or you can head to teachbettergroup.com and request there. Either way, we'll see you over on Facebook. Now let's get back to the episode.
All right, we are here and we are chatting with Scott Nunes. And Scott, man, we have been connected for a long time. We're in a Voxer group for edu podcasters together. We Vox on the side, just you and me, a lot of great conversations. We've had you schedule a couple times. We had the reschedule. I don't even know how many times we've had to reschedule. I'm pretty sure it was always my fault every time. So first off, I appreciate that. But we've always had great conversation. I always enjoy just talking to you and bouncing ideas off you and stuff like that. So I'm excited to now have you on and flip the mic on you because you also podcast. So we're going to talk about that at some point. But before we get too far into things, I just wanted to ask you, man, how you feeling right now?
I'm feeling great, super excited. And honestly, the rescheduling just got me that much more pumped and increased the suspense. I love what you and Ray do. So it's truly a pleasure to be on.
Oh, I'm so stoked to have you on Teach Better Talk, Scott. I can't believe it's taken this long. So I am ready to dive right in. Our first question always has our guest kind of introduce themselves. So would you mind kind of telling us how you would typically respond when somebody asks you what you do?
Yeah, my pleasure. So I'm Scott Nunes. I'm an ELA teacher out of Modesto, California, but I really love edtech. And I'm a former graphic designer, so I really infuse my curriculum with visual items and with tech items because I'm looking at the research and it's saying the future deals with tech. So I find ways to bring that into the classroom when warranted.
I like that. So let's talk. Now I'm curious because I didn't know that you were a former graphic designer. So when you say that, tell us about your former life. Was it a whole former life or something you did on the side with teaching still? Or is teaching your second career?
Teaching is my second career. I
Very
was
cool.
all in with graphic design and it did not bode well for me, especially when the economy tanked. I struggled the whole time. I was never like a successful graphic designer. I just was able to pay some bills and have somewhat of a career. And then the economy tanked and I floundered for quite a bit. And I decided, you know what? I'm throwing in the towel. This is really hard. And I didn't want to move to the Bay Area where all the jobs were. And I didn't want to commute. It's about a 2-hour commute in decent traffic every day. My dad does that. And I don't want to do that. So I started looking for different careers.
Very cool. So were you a freelance designer? Is that what you were doing? Like on your own, or were you with companies and laid off, or how did that go? Now I'm interested. We're going into this now.
We're going in. So I did a lot of freelance work. I actually started my business in high school.
Okay.
I was 14, my freshman year. I started a company called Wicked Designs. Not a great choice for a name, by the way, kind of dark, but I was thinking like wicked, like cool.
Yeah, I got
But
you.
the adults really didn't get that. So I started learning a lot about branding mistakes right from the get go. And then I just eventually just, went by Scott Nunes, just independent there. And I
Yeah.
think that was a wiser choice. And lots of ups and downs with that. And then I got picked up by a local company, and then the economy tanked and they had to let me go. And that was about 2010. And then I did freelance for about 2 years. And then I actually did some other things. I used to sell books on Amazon. I would buy used books and go to bookstores and garage sales and find all these used books and first editions and old books and then resell them on the internet for money. So had to hustle.
I was gonna say you got
That was a lot of
entrepreneur
work.
running through you like I didn't even realize. This is awesome. I love it. So you kind of alluded to a good story of I enjoyed the, and I'm not laughing at the fact that you said you were failed at that particular theme. That was a tough for the economy. But what I'm actually touching on is that, we talk about failure a lot about that. And if you want to share another story, I love that. But I want to touch on this because something that I love about that is that and you may have at the time, but right now talking about it, you're reflecting back on that saying, yeah, like the economy tanked. It was tough. I had to throw in a towel and find something new where you could have beat yourself up, called yourself a failure, called yourself whatever, but you didn't. You reflected back. It wasn't the right time. It didn't make sense. So you shifted gears and found something else to do. And I think that's really cool. So, can you share a time with us that you've had a failure? I mean, maybe that's the story you want to go with. I'm not sure, but in sort of like, how did you get out of that failure? And then sort of what'd you take away from that failure? What'd you learn from it?
Yeah, that one's the big one I normally bring up just because it was such a pivotal change in my life to, go to school. I actually went to school to be an English major, but the graphic design thing took
Mm-hmm.
off. And then when I got out, like, oh, what can I do? And I started looking at all these jobs, and basically being a teacher was one of them, or going back to school and doing something different. So I explored a couple different things. But what this really taught me was, um, it's okay to start anew, but also even if you fail, kind of like Gary V says, like, there's you want micro failures and macro successes.
Mm-hmm.
This was not a success and it was a failure, but over the years I've minimized how much of a failure it was because I've turned it into a success. I bring those aspects, the branding aspects, the graphic design aspects, and the business aspects into my classroom, into what I'm doing now with the podcast, like the graphic design. I didn't design our podcast logo, but I designed my Twitter logo at Mr. Nunes Teach. And then I oversaw the TNT EdTech podcast logo. Like I conceptually designed it. I was just running out of time, and uh, old site like Fiverr is what actually did me in. People
Mm-hmm.
would just do the same work faster, and I couldn't compete with the team of people from overseas. It was
Yeah,
too hard.
that's definitely tough. So you mentioned it. I want to talk about because I listen to your podcast. I'm a subscriber. So, but some of the people listening may not be. So the TNT EdTech podcast. Tell us about it. Why did you start it? What's it all about? What can we expect? Who needs to listen?
It happened kind of by accident, to be honest. I went to a conference, Fall Q. It happens in mid October here in California, Northern California. And I went to a session on podcasting, and they introduced this app called Anchor, and they showed how easy it was to do a podcast with that app. And my buddy Matthew and I were like, hey, we should really try that. And we talked about it for a few months, and then we started going on it and setting up all the branding aspects of it, all the back end items, started recording episodes, and then just got into it and it took off. People were actually listening. We were surprised. We thought we'd get like 10 downloads the first episode. And within like 2 days, we had 100 listens. And that was phenomenal for me, just starting out and starting with something that was really just going to be like a hobby. So that was great.
Very, very cool. So what is it that you guys cover on it? Tell us what can we expect? Sort of what's the purpose? Obviously tech, but what's the angle?
Yeah, so our primary focus is edtech, but it's actually shifting a little bit. Once we get into our conversations with our guests, uh, we're really about storytelling from the teacher perspective. So very, very similar to your own podcast. We love highlighting teachers and what they're doing in the classroom, and edtech is a central part of what we cover, but it's not everything. Everybody has a different story to tell, and that's what we're really focusing on capturing now on the TNT EdTech podcast.
I love it. We'll make sure that there's a link to the podcast over in the show notes so you guys listening can go check that out. So, Scott, now let's sort of flip it around from the failure. Let's talk about a successful moment you've had. This can be something big or something small, but kind of tell us what happened. Why was it a success for you? And then what did you take away from that experience?
Yeah, so I would say a big success is taking calculated risks. So in the summer of 2018, I went to ISTE. Not a whole lot happened. I went to sessions, got a feel for it, got really overwhelmed with all the people. I'd never been to a big tech conference, let alone, a medium-sized one. I think the biggest one I had been to had like 500 people up to that point. So I was just overwhelmed at the size of it all. And then I started checking out other conferences. And then I came across this one called Schoology Next. And we use Schoology in our district. And some of my coworkers were going. And I thought, oh, man, it's in California. It's not too far. Let me see if I could still get tickets. And this was like the night before. They had sold out earlier, but they opened up 25 spots. There were still some tickets. Caitlin Tucker, who I followed closely for years at this point, was the keynote. I'm like, man, I have a chance to meet Caitlin Tucker, see her live on stage, and attend some of her sessions. I need to see if I can go. My wife gave me the green light. She said, you know what? You've been thinking about this for a long time. Like, you got to trust your gut on it. And I'm so glad I did, because here's what happened. Not only did I connect with Caitlin and meet her, and she's been on my show, but I met many other educators. And what they did was they got me on Twitter. And I started out with 8 followers. And I think about a year later, I had like 4,600 followers, which was huge for me. I had never been on social media before, really. Like, I had a Facebook, a personal one, but it wasn't anything big. It was just to kind of connect with friends. But what this did was allow me to develop a professional learning network, and that's life-changing. That's how we got connected.
Mm-hmm. And I'm excited to say that you've grown that from the 45 to now a little over 7,100. So continuing to grow that PLN, man.
Oh, yeah. It's all about that hustle. It hasn't stopped, right? From the book selling days, made me work.
Well, and I mean, those connections grow into those amazing conversations. There's so many educators out there that are worried about their following or their likes that they're getting. And the reality is like, it's how you use it. So to be able to connect with that many educators, you are a perfect example of somebody who really tries to then make sure you have relationships and deep conversations with all those people, which is really important for when you're connecting with people on social.
Yeah, thank you for saying that. That's exactly my goal. The numbers really don't matter so much. It's really about the connections. And, that's what I would encourage people to do. Make meaningful connections, have those conversations. Like on your mastery chat, that's one of the big chats that I try to check out when I'm able to. And for about a year, I was on there pretty regularly. I've kind of, gone away for a little bit, getting busy with other things, other projects, but I'm welcome back whenever I come back, and it's always a good time. It never disappoints.
That's awesome. We love when you pop in there. So tell me a little bit about what is exciting you in education. You've obviously done a lot of different elements, and the podcast is a huge success. You connect with people on social media. I mean, what is keeping you excited about everything that you're doing in education?
So my new jam is 3D printing. And here's why I love it. I can bring in all this cool edtech stuff. I can bring in my graphic design. I can essentially draw something out like my logo and then print it out in 3D form, which is super cool. I can go into augmented and virtual realities and grab things from there. I can grab prints, bring them into augmented and virtual reality. It's so cool. The possibilities are endless. And I think we're just tapping into that realm and the crossovers. And that industry is expected to be like a $16 trillion industry in 2021, I believe.
Wow, that's crazy. That absolutely is exciting. So, in terms of advice, question 5 always has to do with offering advice to teachers. And I know that you provide a lot of advice because I see the conversations in our Voxer group. I see the conversations on Twitter and everywhere you continue to be, you continue to support teachers. So, when it comes to picking just one piece of advice that you maybe want to provide a new teacher, maybe a veteran teacher listening, what advice do educators need to stay progressive and really focus on reaching their students?
Well, I think kind of along with what I said earlier, I would say Twitter is big. And specifically with Twitter, find one thing to be good at. Is it conversations? Is it making connections? Is it hopping on the chats? Is it sharing? Content creation is huge. My numbers didn't explode until I really started sharing more content. That's a big part of connecting with other educators on Twitter, is just sharing what you're doing. And it's not just consuming. So I would say pick one thing and be really good at it.
Very cool. I like that. Get on there. Make sure you follow Scott when you get on there as well, and then get really good at just asking him questions. He's got a lot to offer there. So let's see if you're good at this thing, Scott. We're going to do the next 6 questions. Your goal is to answer each one in 15 seconds or less. You ready to go?
I'm ready.
All right, this is going to be the first one's probably going to be the hardest one for you. I have an idea, but what is just one ed tech tool you cannot live without?
Flipgrid.
What is a book you're reading right now?
Rev Up Robotics by George Valenzuela, who you guys have had on.
Yes, who is a part of our Teach Better Speakers Network. So shout out to George. Who do we need to follow on Twitter or Instagram today?
So I would say Julia Dweck, Jesus Huerta, and Aaron Kiger.
Nice. That's a power trio right there. What's a good YouTube channel or website for educators?
I would say 3D Printing Nerd. Joel Telling's amazing.
And give us a daily, weekly, or monthly routine every teacher should get into.
Ooh, I would say like a weekly routine teachers need to do is just make some quiet time. Even if it's only 5 minutes, 5-10 minutes, you just sit there, do nothing. You're not looking at your phone, not consuming, not creating, just do literally nothing.
That is powerful, but very difficult to do. I like it, so that's good. And lastly, the best piece of advice you've ever received.
Ooh, the best piece of advice I actually got from a missionary of charity that worked with Mother Teresa, and his advice was never let anybody take your peace. He said it's the only thing you're in control of, meaning, we can't, change other people's ideas or perspectives. We can only kind of, be at peace with our own. And it's so important that we don't get frustrated because it kind of takes away from our goal and mission.
Nailed it, Ray.
That was some good advice right there. Holy cow.
Yeah, this guy was hardcore. I could do a podcast on him. He got shot like 3 times by like the cartels in Brazil, and he lived. Yeah, hardcore.
Gosh. Well, Scott, I just think that there's so many different ways that you continue to share good insight. That best piece of advice I'm still going to chew on even after this recording is over. I want to make sure that our listeners stay connected to you because, geez, between the podcast and everything else, there's just so much more that we could take a deep dive into that we won't have time for today. So would you mind sharing with our listeners how they can stay connected?
Yeah, the best place would be on Twitter at Mr. Nunes Teach, but I'm trying to grow my Instagram following as well, so you can help me out there. I can be found at I am Mr. EdTech, And then hit me up on the TNT website at www.tntedtech.com.
Love it. You can find all the links and all the resources and everything we mentioned in this episode over at teachbetter.com, as well as those really important links for connecting with Scott, keeping this conversation going. So make sure you head over to teachbetter.com for all of those in the show notes. Be sure to hit subscribe so you don't miss any of the upcoming episodes. And if you can give us a rating and review, we'd really appreciate that as well. And let's keep taking this one step further. Think of just 3 colleagues who need to hear these amazing stories and share this podcast with them. Scott, this was awesome, man. I'm so glad we finally got you on. I so enjoy our conversations all the time when we have them. I feel like we haven't been quite as active on Voxer as we need to be, so we need to get back to that. But
that's probably more so me. I know you guys are
totally
getting on.
Actually,
Ray's been on more.
Ray's, yeah. But I appreciate that. I always love chatting with you. I love sharing ideas. So super happy to get you on the podcast. Really appreciate you giving us some of your time and sharing your stories, and just being real with us, man. Thank you for coming on.
No, and thank you guys for all you do. Like I said on Voxer last week, you guys are killing it. Just I'm trying to do more content creation, and I know you guys have a team, but still, I'm just blown away. You guys are doing what I want to do, but you're doing it to the max. Your goals are aggressive, but very doable. So, I'm definitely going to be supporting you any way I can and achieving that, because I firmly believe we're better together. Like, that was one thing I learned too from graphic design was not like being upset when other people succeed. It's not anything against you. Their successes are your successes if you allow them to be.
Yep. Your success doesn't prevent mine. I love it. That's awesome. Chad and I were literally talking about that in the car just yesterday. So I love that's where you went with that, Scott. Appreciate all the kind words, really do. And until next time, let's get out there and let's teach better.